Everybody, this is Chris Sheng again. Today we've got a special guest. His name is Manick Bhan, who is the founder, CEO, and CTO of Search Atlas Group, SEO specialist and guru. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here, Chris.
Of course, man. Tell us a little bit about Search Atlas and what you guys do.
Awesome. Yeah. So Search Atlas is a AI SEO automation platform built for the enterprise and agencies. It allows brands to seamlessly automate and execute what we call a holistic SEO framework for their website, for their Google My Business, and even for their ads on Google.
Got it. And is there like any specific segment of the market you tend to target, or you guys end up serving better or versus others, or no?
We really aim to serve agencies, practitioners who are trying to help multiple businesses, because for us, we really care about having an impact, and we can just have a much bigger impact as we serve agencies.
Fair enough. Very cool. Tell us a little bit about your journey. I see here
Yeah,
you have some things that you're an advocate for, and then also start off as a photographer. But how'd you end up in the SEO game? And how'd you get? I mean, also like CTO. Like, what's your technical background?
totally. It's a long and winding road, and I'll just kind of save the audience the boring details. But I actually started my journey as an investment banker at Goldman.
Okay.
This is like ancient history at this point,
All
thankfully.
good.
I've let those scars heal. Happy to have nothing to do with the financial world anymore. But I began there, and actually, it's funny. I thought that programming was the one thing that I should never touch because I got a 3 in my computer science AP exam, which is the worst that I did on any test. It's funny how now I'm CTO, but when I began, I really wasn't focused on that. I was really more focused on like the markets, and we were helping companies like Groupon. We were helping eBay with that as well. And that was like the second coming of tech, the second big wave. And it felt different. I had one of my best friends from college, my roommate, exited a company in the Bay Area for like over 10 million. And I was like, dude, what am I doing working on Wall Street when I could be in tech? This seems like a lot more fun. And I'd be building things that I was excited about. So I threw my hat over the fence. I left my job. I started building my first SaaS company called ruckus.com. That company was where I cut my teeth. I learned how to code. Woke up every day for about 3 years. Sublime Text Editor is what I was using at the time. Started with Perl, then went to PHP, then went to JavaScript. Did it wrong so many times before I did it right. Eventually moved to Python, Django, and learned a bunch along the way, and ended up building that company. We were doing at the max like 100 million a year of transaction volume. We had a really successful iPhone app. We partnered with Shazam, but that industry was really cutthroat, the industry of like live entertainment ticketing. And so when I eventually exited and sold that company, I realized I wanted nothing to do with that space ever again. And then I moved and what I got passionate about there building that company was search. Because you might not know this, but did you know that the largest ticketing company in the world is actually not Ticketmaster, and it's not
Mm.
StubHub. It's actually Google.
Yeah,
Google,
interesting. Makes sense.
right? Like Google actually owns like a huge amount of market share in every industry, in hotels, in the law firm space, in like flights, in any industry you can imagine, e-commerce, right? They own a
Hmm.
huge segment of that TAM because people buy ads from them, and they people go through Google to find those businesses, obviously.
Yep.
So I realized that we needed to really master the channel, and I dedicated, I decided at that time I'd be willing to build in the space for the next 10 years, and
Hmm.
that's what I did.
Interesting. Got it. With that first startup, and then realizing, the how SEO is in play in terms of how people discover, that's where you've decided to go and lean into that and start Search Atlas. Interesting.
Exactly. It really started as like a research company in the beginning,
Yeah.
where we were just scraping the internet, scraping Google, trying to run correlation to figure out how does Google decide what's number one, what's number two, what's number three, and then why people are on page two, three, four, five instead of page one, to really
Yeah.
crack the code on that. And to be honest, like we've been doing that for 7 years, like really diving deep into the algorithm to reverse engineer it. And I think we finally were able to do that this year.
Interesting. I have a lot more questions around just kind of the the core offering of what you guys do and what you've learned. But before I do that, I'd love to kind of get a little bit more sense of just like your journey as a founder, right? So you go and you left investment banking, obviously pretty lucrative career, and then to make this leap to take a risk on yourself, bet on yourself, and then learn coding along the way. How
Well,
was that?
just one small, sorry, Chris, one small correction for any of the listeners. Investment banking as a career is less lucrative than everyone thinks, because when
Yeah,
you add up the total amount of hours you're working, you're kind of
yeah,
working just above minimum wage for
yeah.
whatever you get paid. So not as lucrative. And to anyone listening, I do not advise going into that profession. Uh,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so, I mean, I guess like that being said, right? So, you go in becoming a founder, which also in the very beginning though is also not lucrative in that sense, meaning that you are putting in a large amount of hours and typically not getting paid in the very beginning. But what was that like? And, what were some of the maybe like key learnings that you took away from that first venture that, really helped you accelerate for the second time around?
Awesome. So my big mistake with the first company was that we were building for years before we got our first dollar of revenue.
Uh,
It like every product, like the whole minimum viable product, and find like test a theory, a hypothesis, and try to disprove it as fast as possible. Don't
yeah.
have the ego to say like, no, 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 we're gonna win, we're gonna muscle through it. What you have to do as a founder is, especially in the early days before like while you're pre-revenue, is you are in a race against time, right? You have a limited amount of dollars in your bank account. Then you can supplement that by raising capital from investors, right? Really, what you need to do is in the minimum amount of time, test your theory that is the market, does it want this product or not? And break that as fast as possible, break your misconceptions around that as
Yeah.
fast as possible. And because the sooner you can basically get clarity on this, the sooner you're going to arrive at the next iteration of your concept that could be successful. And you just got to iterate as fast as possible. I did that wrong my first
Yeah.
time around.
Yeah, and I mean, could you dive a little bit deeper as to why you think that is? Because I work with so many founders, and I'm also working with right now like a program called Antler. It's like a VC that's here in Austin. But that's the whole ethos, right? I mean, that's the kind of overarching philosophy is to break that break that as quickly as possible. Still I see like half of these founders struggling with the concept of it. Curious as to like if you did some self-reflection as to why that was the case for you.
Ego gets in the way for sure.
Mm,
And we don't want to be wrong, right? We care about this idea. And sometimes we're so in love with the idea of doing it that we just want to be doing it, especially if you're a first-time founder. That's the reason why so many first-time founders fail, is
yeah,
because the love of the game almost gets in the way of figuring out, hey, is this a business or is this like a hobby
yeah,
or a side hustle or a side project that's just always going to be around? Like, is this, can I actually monetize this or not? I think everyone should focus on, is this actually a product that is worth selling and can be monetized in the market? If it's not, what do I need to change about it to make it so? And it's not 100 features that are the magic feature. It's really like a core one or two really key things about the product that make it valuable. If you have to build 18 million things, you're not doing it right.
yep, absolutely. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's even there's like a psychological fear too that's tied to it. Like that stems, I feel like, deeper to each individual, and that whatever that thing is emotionally or like intrinsic in that person that stems from whatever history that they have with themselves. It's like it's deep. Like it's something that I see a lot of them struggle with, despite like everybody telling them they know what they need to be doing in terms of like getting to yes or no answers. But I agree, like the market is the absolute truth, right? So like if anybody's actually willing to pay you a dollar for it, like a stranger putting their hard-earned money into whatever it is that you're offering, and you can do that at scale and prove that out, that's the goal. That being said,
Totally.
how was it different
And
with Search Atlas? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
the other thing I want to say, because I think more people need to hear this, it's that you are not your company, right?
Yes.
Your
That's
identity is
yeah.
not your startup. Your startup is something else. And if you can disentangle that, you can look at the startup in a way and look at it and say, it's okay if this concept right now, if it's not hitting, It's actually okay. We just need to be hyper aware and not lie to ourselves. Like Feynman has a great quote. He says, uh, uh, you must never lie to yourself, and you're the easiest person to fool, right?
Yep,
It's something like that. I butchered it, but it's about breaking that cycle, right? And I think that's like the key.
absolutely. Yeah. And that being so you ended up realizing that that was kind of like the biggest learning. And then so how was that different this time around? How did you approach it differently with Search Atlas?
So yeah, I'm really proud of this because I can say I honestly learned something from getting it wrong the first time so
Yep.
badly. Before I even built a company, I built a landing page and I ran ads, right, to a service that didn't exactly exist. Now,
Yep.
some people here would say, like, but Monik and Chris, like, that's wrong to sell a product before you have it. Well, no, it's not, because you can just give them a refund if you really had
Yep.
to. You could say, I'm sorry, our product's not ready yet, and I don't want to take your money. I'm going to refund you. The key that you need to figure out is there enough of a demand for this you can tap into? So the first thing that I did, I built up like a microsite with my offer, and then I
Yep.
started running Google ads and Facebook ads to it to see whatever the CAC is. If I could get some customers through the funnel, then I could figure out what's my average order value, what's my LTV, what does the economics of this thing look like, and then from there you're open eyed, right? If you realize you can't tap into the market, then forget it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Kanye West did the great example of that. That's kind of like undertold in terms of pulling that Super Bowl ad and driving all that traffic and keeping everything at the same price to figure out which ones actually were in demand. And then it was just then he knew what the inventory to actually produce. Uh, I
Mm.
mean, that's kind of like the larger scale of things, but I think that that's pretty much what every company needs to be doing is like validating it by driving traffic to your idea and then figure out if people actually will do any action from there. So you went through that process in the very beginning. You drove traffic, ended up getting customers before you had the full product out. And then what did validation look like for you? Like, how did you ultimately realize what the idea was? And was there different iterations of the landing page that you had to do to figure out the way to explain, what the offering was, and did that evolve at any point when you're running the exercise?
Yeah, so the way we started was we tried to tell the story in this landing page, like of our product, and I knew we were on the right track when we got a sales call. The phone rang. I picked it up, and in the early days, I'm the marketer, I'm the engineer, I'm the salesperson. Like you kind of do everything. You wear a lot of hats. It's not healthy long term, but in the early days, it's what you got to do to really
Yep.
understand the business. So I sold this guy on the phone for our solution 5K a month, and he literally closed and paid me the money while I was on the phone. And
Mm,
the sales call was all of like 40 minutes long. It was on that call, like when I hung up on the phone, I was like, we're in business, right? This is a
yep.
real product that the industry wants. And if you can get like that sign or a validation moment like that, where you can see there's dollars chasing this concept, this product, uh, and you as the founder will always have this kind of superpower, like in Super Mario when you jump and you get the star. Like you as the founder, you are Mario with the star. Like you can close people in a different way because you understand your problem statement, you understand your solution, you hopefully have the charisma of also being
Yep.
able to level with someone and share the pain of facing the same challenge that they do. And through that, I think, especially in the B2B world, if you're a B2B business, you can figure out very quickly if the B2B market wants your product
Mm,
within like the first 30 days. Like you can figure it out pretty fast. And if
yep.
you can get some dollars, on the scoreboard right away, like that should be like that sign you're on the right track.
Yep. Absolutely. Um, So, okay, very cool. So, love hearing about that founder journey and kind of like what you've learned and the different evolutions. Now, going from getting that early validation, first 5,000 in revenue, to then building out like the product over these past few years, how has that process been like, and what's been kind of like the key takeaways? I've seen some of the logos that you're working with in terms of on the website, and some of them are really big companies. How has that worked in terms of the value that you've been delivering? And then like also just from the SEO stamp, we'll start there in terms of like question just being like, how has building the company and then just like the core offering evolved in the past 5, 6 years in terms of what you initially were thinking, if at all?
Yeah, so we took it maybe a slightly unorthodox approach where as an SEO company, we had to have good SEO, obviously. Like
Yep.
if we can't get leads ourselves through SEO as our channel, we have
Yep.
no reason to be selling a product to the market. We
Yeah.
shouldn't exist, right? So thankfully, we've got very, very good SEO. We're extremely good at that. So our go-to-market was SEO for our own SEO product, competing
Yeah.
with the most competitive, some of the most competitive keywords out there because their SEO is fighting over SEO keywords. So that was our go-to-market. One thing that was great about building this company was that we were profitable from day one, and we've never raised a dollar of outside capital. So we've always been profitable, and we just kind of grew our business alongside our revenue and our profitability. So we never had a down month. We were always in the black. And then as our product came to market and our customers were validating our approach with their dollars, right? Validation comes from customers buying your product with dollars. We were able to scale up our team and our engineering team. So this year we'll end the year. I think we'll hit around just below 20 million of annual recurring revenue for our org, which is great. That is a massive growth that we've had this year, probably like over 5x growth this year.
Yeah.
And really what happened was the SEO channel drove us our first, got us to our first probably like 1 or 2 million of ARR.
Yeah.
And then as we kept growing, the brand took over and the brand started to become the thing that was really catching and becoming viral. The search channel reinforced it and it kept growing, but the brand channel opened things up. And that's how we just kind of worked it. Like we worked with our customers. We have a very active community of SEO professionals and agencies. And we just have we're very good at listening to them and hearing about what their perspective is about what our product is doing well and not well. And my goal was always to be the fastest moving player in the game. So we have to deliver those features or those suggestions faster than anything else. So I always had a big focus on the engineering team, that the engineering team has to be, excellent. We have to be the best that we can possibly be with the engineering team. And so we'd have to deliver features and product updates at a really breakneck pace that we've kept up for the last like 5 years. And that has been like our big differentiator, is that our product is just the best. And so we've been more a product-led growth company. And now this year we've turned on other channels, other growth channels like ads, like affiliates, like, more conferences. But the story in the early days, it was really organic. And now we're starting to do some of that, inorganic growth.
Yeah. Got it. That's very cool. And you
Growth
said
strategies.
got it. And you're about like you're going to probably hit 20 million in ARR this year, you said?
We'll our actual numeric projection for December is 18.7 million. So
Wow.
probably by like January, February, we'll clear 20.
Wow, very cool. Talking a little bit about SEO, right? Like, I guess, how has you're continuously rolling out new features, and it's something where I feel like you have to stay on top of it constantly to kind of like understand what's changing within the landscape of it. What's been some of those changes for those that like aren't as in the weeds as you guys are? In terms of when you started and like how the game was then versus how it's changed to now. And are there different strategies that you have evolved the product that you guys are offering, to encompass?
It's so cool. So yeah, the thing is Google changes the algorithm, and we've seen how the ranking factors, some get weighted more and some get weighted less. And so the blueprints and the strategies that teams have been using, they've had to evolve over the years. And the only way that you can really see the changes that are happening is you got to look at the data. You got to actually run the experiments. You got to run the studies. And so first and foremost, we're a research company. We do that research. We spend probably over now 25, 30 grand a month on just the research division. That's just running these tests and experiments. That's how we stay smart. And I would say myself as like the founder, CTO, CEO of the company, I actually spend, I have to spend like a good 30, 40% of my time and energy just on the data science, on the reading Google's patents, right? Going through the patent literature and understanding how are they thinking about
Mm,
the impact of AI content on their search engine? How's Google thinking about how that's changing the backlink profile of the internet and evaluating the quality of sites? What are the signals that they're using? What's the latest that's coming out of the Stanford Brainiacs? What are they talking about? And so going to those primary texts and patent literature, it's not all super sexy and fun, but it is really insightful. And that work is so necessary and important. So I bring a lot of that into the team. The team does a lot of research into that as well. And that shapes the testing, the experiments that we do so we can stay smart and stay cutting edge. And we've seen, Chris, like massive changes. I think Google, uh, where we used to be like 10 years ago to 5 years ago, Google became more democratic, where the authority signals they were measuring about how authoritative sites are, that are really hard to spoof and to fake, PageRank and authority of sites linking to you, they shifted that down and they shifted up the content signals. So you becoming a authority in your niche, what they call knowledge-based trust, and topical authority, topical coverage, being super authoritative in whatever it is that you're doing, that was weighted up. And we can see sites that are really, really small, like startups, but prove their authority to Google through their content and to their site.
mm,
Those sites can crush and do really well. So we've seen how these factors have fluctuated and changed, and also how the search engines evolved. Today, actually, like this year in Q3, there was a huge update in the third quarter, where Google's now paying more attention to the sources of traffic you're getting and the keywords that you're getting traffic from, and also the power of your brand. So, the crazy thing about this landscape is that it's always staying fresh. If your SEO methodology predates like September of 2024, your methodology might be obsolete because the game has changed, keeps changing. And Google, they lie. Like they're not even honest about the algorithm because they don't want it to be gamed. So the
mm-hmm,
only way to know the truth is you got to know the truth for yourself. You got to do your own experiments. And we
mm.
actually share our white papers as well. So, if your team doesn't do that, you can just look at the research we're doing and we're open and honest about what we found. And we actually publish all of our data.
Interesting. Very cool. Um, that being said, I mean, what's something that I guess that is you guys have discovered in more like did you guys have discovered that you're planning for as maybe like uh the next kind of like shift maybe in like the space in the next like 6 months? I guess because like it's very hard to plan for like how the algorithms will adjust in like the next year. But like what's kind of do you have guys have like any like hypothesis or like round where Google is gonna be like doubling down? I know you mentioned around, you know, being a thought leader, authority in a certain space or a knowledge expert. Do you feel is that something you feel like is just going to be much more stronger in terms of like search, and then how does that then get pulled into how do they like I guess like yeah the question of like how do they pull from content that is ultimately like 10 authorities to the top results, right? Like how are those things like changing?
Yeah. Of search of digital marketing, where AI, generative AI, is literally changing everything about how digital marketers are going to market with SEO and SEM. And like any industry, like practitioner or thought leader, you got to know where the puck is going. And you could only know that if you're at the bleeding edge and you're trying to stay there. So we've been in this game for over a decade, uh, in a really technologically cutting edge way and research oriented way. What I see happening right now is there's a paradigm shift in the way that SEO is being executed. The old way of doing SEO is the one that I think most people are familiar with. It's I do my keyword research. I'll use tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs. I'll type in some of the keywords that I know I should rank for. They'll give me some new ideas. I then take those ideas and I create content based on
Mhm.
that. And so I'm going to use like ChatGPT to generate some, lower quality AI content, or maybe I'll have a writer write it partially, but use AI as well. And so
Yeah.
right now we're in this like in between chapter where we're using some of the AI technologies to help us create like the content and go to market, but it's not fully adopted. And we're also afraid of doing it wrong with AI.
Yep.
There is a new chapter coming where that I call dynamic SEO. And in the new chapter, we are not going to be making changes to our site directly. We're going to be using software to automate the SEO campaign across the domain. All the
Mm.
technical fixes, the image alts, the title tags, the meta descriptions, the internal linking strategy, the actual factuality of the page, adding painful things like schema markup that people have been doing by hand. All this like chlorophyll, borophyll of SEO is being fully automated. And we actually, I can say this because we created the first version of it. We call it Auto. Auto
Mm.
stands for one click, trusted, transparent optimization of SEO. So it's one click, meaning you just click a button and it deploys the fixes to your site instantly. Trusted because it's based on real science and real research that if I do this, then good things happen to my site. Transparent because it shows you exactly what it's doing. So you have to look at it and you can do it or you can not do it if you disagree with it, but it's very transparent. And then optimization, making improvements and showing change. So we're actually running the largest SEO experiment in history of over 10,000 sites are being automatically optimized using software through holistic SEO principles. And I got to tell you, the results, they're blowing me away. It's
Mm.
absolutely blowing me away. The velocity, the speed at which AI is going to allow us to move way faster than we could before. And the combination of AI and automation with the right principles and framework and systems is going to completely radically open up these channels for marketing to people without these massive budgets. So a team of like 3, 4 marketers or a small startup company that's kind of bootstrapped or maybe it's raised its seed round, it's going to be able to do amazing SEO and pay-per-click marketing through technologies like Auto. I mean, we were one of the first, but we won't be the last. Other people are doing this too. And so it's going to completely open up the landscape. And obviously, Google is going to respond. They already are. So it's important to be doing it at the highest possible caliber and level and not doing it at a remedial level. And that doing it well or not well just has to do with how much you know about how the game works.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. On that note, I think we're up on time, but I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing all your insights and just your knowledge base. It's been super insightful and really helpful for me personally, also just as somebody is not as fluent around the SEO game, but knowing the importance of it. But the way that you kind of explained all this stuff makes a ton of sense.
Awesome. Glad to be here, Chris. It's a pleasure. Really enjoyed
Awesome.
it.